Today I'm going to show you one of the most powerful techniques that I use with a lot of my clients on day one to help unlock their stiff bodies and particularly improve the health of their shoulders and their ability to get this rib flare in the front to come down, which is representative of some issues I'm going to discuss. When people have rib flare, that's usually associated with extension tone of the low back. If you were to arch your back and push yourself into anterior pelvic tilt right now, that would push this forward, which is naturally going to push these ribs up. A general correlation is the more extended someone is, the less they're going to be able to rotate from side to side, and the more stiff their shoulders are going to be, particularly in the back side right here. You can think of these people being in a hyperinflated state, meaning that their diaphragm, which is a muscle of inhalation, is stuck in a state where it is descended. So if I've got rib flare right here, pushing these low ribs up, the diaphragm cannot properly ascend as it should upon exhalation as these ribs would come down. Normally when we breathe, as we inhale, we should have expansion of the rib cage from front to back and side to side. This should be 360-degree expansion. And when we exhale, we should have the ribs come down into internal rotation, and we should form something called a zone of apposition. To put it simply, a zone of apposition means that the rib cage is in a position to allow for a nice full inhale, which will allow the ribs to expand from front to back and side to side. Typically, people that lack the ability to get a zone of apposition are going to have this rib flare, and the diaphragm is not able to properly do its job upon a full inhalation to expand the rib cage from front to back and side to side. So they're going to have predominantly this belly breathing strategy. We have different cavities in our rib cage called the mediastinal cavities, and the back one, the posterior one, is much larger than the one in the front, which means that we need to be able to expand when we inhale volume into our back, into that posterior chamber. But people that have this rib flare are lacking the ability to do that significantly. Generally, these people are going to present with a limitation in their shoulder external rotation and particularly their shoulder flexion assessments. When we get a full exhale, we're going to get those ribs to come down, and then at the end of that full exhale, we're going to feel some side ab engagement and deep ab engagement, your transverse abs. This is going to set the rib cage in a good position, get that zone of apposition, which will allow us to then get that adequate rib cage expansion, particularly in that posterior mediastinal cavity. In my beginner body restoration program, the goal is to help people feel and move better as quickly as possible. And in order to do that, we need to have a rib cage that is mobile and can move and rotate and not be stuck in one orientation. So we use this exercise as the very first thing that we do to help pattern good breathing and to get that zone of apposition, which will set us up for success later down the line with other exercises. So take your shoulder flexion and external rotation measurements beforehand, and then do this technique with a balloon or a straw, as I'll show, and then retest it to see what happens. So we need to be in this position where we have our mid to low back up against the wall and our knees close to our chest, feet hip width apart. We need to make sure that we are feeling our sit bones at the bottom of our pelvis throughout this entire exercise. That's going to ensure that we're in a good position. And we want to bring the knees pretty close to the chest, about this far. And if you feel like your knees are going outside like this, try to keep them in a little bit. And you could just take the right arm and just hug them a little bit if you want. But if you're able to keep them there passively right here, we're going to reach with the right arm. And we're going to hold the balloon in the mouth with the left hand. We're going to exhale through our mouth and get all the air out. And as we do that, we're going to feel ourselves peel off the wall and flex more, and we're going to feel our abs engaged, particularly on the side at the end of that exhale. We're going to hold that, put the tongue on the roof of the mouth at the end of the exhale, and we're going to keep the tongue on the roof of the mouth as we inhale. And then we're going to exhale again, keeping that right arm reach. Now the goal is to maximize the pause, the amount of time between the exhale and the inhale, with the tongue on the roof of the mouth before you have to inhale again. You don't want to go to the point where you're stressed, but you want to do how comfortably can we go before we feel like we have to inhale again. It's going to maximize the amount of expansion you get in your back rib cage. And we're going to do this for 3 breaths, or potentially 5 breaths, but probably 3. And then we're going to let the air out of the balloon at the end of the last inhale, and then we're going to go again. The biggest mistake on this is that people are going to shrug their shoulders into their ears, either with the hand that they're holding it in or with the arm that they're reaching with. So make sure that you're not doing this. Your traps are nice and relaxed, but you're still getting that reach. The other thing is that people are going to be too close or too far away from the wall, and they're not going to be feeling their sit bones. So Trevor can demonstrate what it looks like if you're too close, and then you're going to be kind of extended, and you're going to feel like you're not able to peel off the wall effectively, or they're going to be too far away and they're going to be slouched like that. So make sure you're feeling your sit bones, your mid to low back is in contact with the wall, but your upper back will be peeling off. If you're struggling with the balloon, you could use a straw, and you can do the same exact thing. So you can hold it there, you can reach with the right arm, and then you can just get a full exhale. So that's a little less external load or resistance, as you can think of it, and that will still cue you to get a full exhale. An alternative position you can do this in is in a side lying position with about a 90-degree angle at both your knees and your hips, and making sure that your shoulder is stacked over your hips. You're not rolled too far back or too far forward. You're right, nice and even right there. And you can do the same exact thing. I would also recommend that you have some support underneath your head to allow your cervical spine to be neutral, so you're not cranked here or too much support and you're here, nice and neutral. And then do the same exact thing. Exhale through the mouth fully. You're gonna feel your side abs engage. Pause, tongue on the roof of the mouth. Extend that pause for as long as you're comfortable. Keep the tongue on the roof of the mouth as you inhale through your nose, and then exhale again as you take the tongue off. If you do this technique well for a couple of sets, what you should notice is that when you stand up, your ribs are noticeably less flared, but that doesn't mean that you're now slouching over. You can still remain tall, but the ribs are now a little bit more down because you've achieved that zone.